Hello, everybody. I'm Kimberly. I am a knitter and an artist, and in today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you, like, basically my journey with making art and some solutions that I want to try to sort of get back into things and be more productive and prolific with visual art. So, I am an artist. I have studied art and I've made art off and on over the years. And like these past few years, I haven't made much, like in terms of like visual art, like paintings or drawings. And part of what stopped me from making as much art as I wanted to was like I have this fear of like running out of materials, running out of like surfaces to make the art on. So I primarily did watercolor painting, and I've also done acrylic painting and oil painting. And all of these mediums require, watercolor paper or canvas, both of which are often sold in like kind of small amounts. And, especially with like canvases, they can get expensive depending on the quality that you're getting. And that factor kind of stopped me from making the kind of art that I wanted to make because I've always been drawn to making large art, little, kind of abstract art. I've made small things. I actually have some paintings of mine on the wall. Let me see if I can, maybe if I can show this in a way that doesn't show the mess on my table. There you go. Um, yeah, so that's my paintings. Those were some of the last paintings that I've made. Actually, I made those. Uh, Goodness, was that a year or two ago? They're a mixture of oils, mostly oils, and some acrylic paintings. And I I've made some really large paintings. Well, really large, that's relative. I've made some larger than those paintings, like about 30 by 40 inches. And I like painting large, but the larger you paint, the more expensive the canvas is. And that was a factor, you know what I mean? Especially if you're just, well, from in my case, I kind of like the process of painting and not so much, well, no. The results are important to me. I do want something that looks nice, but also the process itself is is fun for me. But like, you know, sometimes the canvases can be, depending on what size, like the stuff I wanted to make was like really, really big. Um, like I remember there was a painting I saw at, I think it was the Whitney Museum by Lee Krasner, and it was just like you could just see that she was like going like this all across the canvas, and I want to do stuff like that. Like that seems really, really fun to me. But for me to like the process, like I could either make my own canvas, which I have done once. um Not my favorite thing. Not my favorite thing to do. And then you could also buy canvases, which can get expensive, the bigger you go. And plus, also, I have like a limited space. Like, I'm in like I don't have like a huge studio or anything like that. The closest thing is in my living room, but I share that with people, so I can't have a giant painting in my living room. But recently, I came up with like a solution to that, and that is uh, a paper roll. So, like, I think some people call it butcher paper, but it's not the same thing that the butchers use. But it's basically like a roll, a really long roll of drawing paper, and they use it in schools sometimes, depending, on the classroom. And I thought, like, okay, maybe I can get a really long roll, and that sort of frees me up from the worry about running out of supplies. And then if I want to make it bigger, I can just I can cut it and then tape it to make it like taller. Um, but then I thought it was like, okay, how am I gonna actually draw it? Like, am I gonna have to work on the floor? I'm still working that out. I don't know yet how I'm gonna do that. I kind of envision myself standing up and uh, painting or drawing, but I think that that's a cool solution. Um, you know, I haven't tried it yet, but I want to, and I think that that could work for me. And just sharing the process that I'm in right now. Another thing is getting, okay, so I found, okay, so years ago, I was in a school and I found these tempera sticks, like paint sticks that the kids were using, and I just tried it out, and I was like, oh my God, I love this. This is a cool material. Like, it dries quick and it layers really smoothly. And so I bought a pack of those. I recently remembered that, like maybe a couple weeks ago, and I bought a pack of those, and they're fun to use. So I'm like, okay, kind of like opening my mind about um, alternate art supplies that are not necessarily like professional art supplies. Um, Obviously, if you're going to sell something, you have to concern yourself with light fastness and all that stuff. But for me, I'm like, I want to just play. I want to play uh, and just like move around on the canvas or the surface, and just see what I can do with that. And I feel like that's a good way to get started on things, because I have bought the canvases before. I have bought some expensive art supplies, and I don't want to say that I wasn't ready, but I think that part of it was too much for what I wanted to do. And also, like, I don't know, like, I've been doing research and, looking up books and stuff like that. I like looking at old books because sometimes they can have a, uh, a perspective that is not like covered by like internet algorithms and stuff. They just sort of like get into how to actually do this thing, pre-internet. And this book I came across, I don't remember the name, but it was like she was talking about uh, using a sketchbook, and using a sketchbook as a tool for um, planning your paintings, and also like that that thought process helped me a lot. Okay, like just realizing that like your sketchbook it doesn't have to be for finished art, or it doesn't have to look pretty. Like your sketchbook is almost like it's like taking notes. You know what I mean? Like you're not gonna like hold up your notebook from a class or whatever and display that, not necessarily, but like treating your sketchbook not as like a place to house, these smaller but perfect things, but more of like a tool of like testing out um, different compositions and things like that. Actually, I think the book is over there. Oh gosh, it's far away. I can't remember the name of it. Okay, I'm gonna go grab it. Let me just give me a second. Okay, so this is the book. This is called The Purpose of Painting by Angela Diallo. Okay, and she's focusing on watercolor in this book, and I mean, I believe this is an out of print book, but maybe, I don't know, if you're into like sketchbooks and like learning how to like sort of develop a watercolor painting in steps and like thinking like that, I think this book was like pretty helpful for me, and it kind of changed my perspective because um, I did study art in school. Um, it was a really great experience. I learned a lot, but I did not learn how to, I guess, manage a, what am I trying to say? Like I was never taught like how to plan a painting. Like I knew how to draw, I knew how to paint, but I never got like step by step, you know, how to how to use a sketch. What is a sketchbook for? How to plan a painting. I just sort of did it, and like, okay, I had something in mind and I just did it, and if it looked okay, it looked okay. Um, if it didn't, I was just like, okay, well, that's like a wasted uh, piece of paper or whatever. But yeah, uh, oh my goodness, it's getting so late. um, but yeah, so I want to try out the butcher paper or the craft paper, whatever it's called, and make some drawings with that and play around and just sort of get more comfortable and into like drawing again. And then after a while, if I'm like, okay, I really want to make this into a painting, then I will get a canvas or get some watercolor paper or whatever I want to do. um so I feel like I was a little all over the place. Let me get my notebook again to make sure that I got everything. Yeah, so basically, you know, whatever your art skill is, if you think if finances are like a concern, think of alternative ways to make your art. You don't have to get the, you know, I almost said S tier, but you know what I mean. Like, you don't have to get like the Rolls Royce of art supplies if you're just getting started, or you're not sure what direction you want to go in. You're not sure what types of things that you like to do. Um, think of some different solutions. Uh, for that, think of some solutions that will allow you to play around freely with your art. All right, so I'm gonna wrap this up and oh, yeah, I want to give you some examples. I just thought of something right now. Um, so like for example, if you're a sculptor or a pottery maker, you don't have to get the spinning thing. You can get some clay, get some clay, and I think they have some clays that don't dry, so you can just keep molding them endlessly and just like play around with that before you move on to like the kiln or something like that. um yeah. Okay, so whatever your craft is, think outside the box. Even if like you grew up in an environment, um or grew up, if you were educated in an environment that just told you one way to do that thing, like okay, we use only cold press, 300 GSM, or whatever it is, 90, I don't remember what it is, but you know, cold press paper, and we use this fancy brand of watercolors and this fancy type of brush. um, I know that sometimes it's like sometimes you don't want to use bad materials, um, but I think you want to have something that you don't feel restricted. Okay, so for me, a way to free up the restrictions is to get a big roll of paper, and I'm just using the supplies that I have. I have these tempera sticks. I've got colored pencils. I've got watercolor paint. Whatever you have, if you have markers, etc. Okay, I am going to end this here. Um, Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.